Aloha. Today I wanted to do a video in reference to the Nibiru, Annunaki, Sumerian talk. Just get it out there because it's a topic, and I do think it's part of this storyline of deception, pretty much. That's where my intuition sits with the whole talk of Nibiru and the Annunaki. For one, the foundation of the Annunaki is inherently creating, in reference to the human storyline, is the slave mentality. So all of Zechariah Sitchin stuff, the Anunnaki coming to Earth to mine for gold and then creating human 1.0, which is like this mixture of physical and etheric bodies, and tying in like these generic versions of humanity. Overall, that story is rooted in the slave mentality. It's rooted in a powerless, hopeless, helpless human design. Another version of a cosmic mistake. Another point to the whole Nibiru Anunnaki perspective is it only focuses on the Sumerian perspective. It only goes into it's very constrained or limited to Sumer, which was largely African. So when you go into the depths of that, so the origins don't start in Sumer. They don't start in Babylon. The storylines of this whole everything, civilization as we know it, does not start in Babylon. It doesn't. This is where all these storylines are rooted. The way they are told today in the science fiction model is why they are so accepted, or so, what's the word, is not accepted, on the realms of like easily digestible, or like attractive. That's what it is. They're so attractive because we are like a moth to a flame. We are drawn to the fire of like a rich alien story, or something that is heavily extraterrestrial, given that we've had decades of Star Wars programming, decades of Star Trek programming, decades of secret underground alien technology and storylines. Everything that's secret, it like draws us in. We need to know about it. So this plays right into the alien deception. It plays right into your action-packed movie script of what's next, or what was, or what secretly is. Like, this whole storyline is being played. The science fiction heartstrings are being played on a regular basis. And since the old storylines of the university system, the evolution program, the human history, it doesn't even go into human history. The mainstream historical understandings of who and what we are as a collective and as individuals go from dinosaurs, or from the Big Bang, to dinosaurs, to Monkey, to Scarlett Johansson as Lucy, to artificial intelligence and the transhumanism program. That's the mainstream idea. That's where the overall collective is being guided and programmed to be a part of. That is there, and within those are layers, within those storylines are layers of limitation and slave programming. So if you believe that you're a cosmic mistake, you have no purpose, you have no meaning. So there's one layer of limitation, hopelessness, and programming. If you believe you came from monkeys, then you're just an animal with animalistic behaviors and animalistic genetics that is just subject to your animalistic reality and having no connection to spirit or your soul. So you are basically just a monkey. So if you are a monkey, then you can be programmed to be a slave, and you need to be treated as such. So this is how this whole design of haves and have-nots through the colonial program, the post-Columbian New World era and agenda, the not having any purpose or meaning is allowing you to now accept technology into your body, which gives you an artificial purpose, a synthetic purpose and meaning, with the so-called promise of extending life or living forever or transferring consciousness into technology, whatever they want to call their Nickelodeon version of reality. It's not who and what you really are. It is the slave programming. The story of the Anunnaki coming here to dig gold and creating these human versions to dig gold for them creates this alternate version of a slave mentality that I don't dig with. I don't dig with that shit. That does not at all resonate with me. First of all, it's limited, like I said before, it's limited to Sumeria and the Sumerian text. It doesn't go into the depths of pre-Kemetic Africa. It doesn't go into the depths of the Mayan and Aztec and Olmec connections to Africa, Kemet, and those storylines that predate all of Sumeria. This shit is older. There's math, civilizations, geometry, connections with humanity predating Sumer in the Americas. That right there already sets that foundation on crack level. It's just, there's already giant cracks. There's cracks all over the place. Not to mention the fact that when you look at this stuff, it's being pumped out by the system. Anything being pumped out by the system needs to be looked at with a fine-tooth comb. It needs to be addressed with an automatic layer of side eye. You need to be looking at this from a perspective of, this is another control grid. This Nibiru is an easy tie-in for NASA. It's an easy piece on the board. It's also linked heavily with the New Age agenda and the New Age sort of mentality. So how I see it even further, one step further, is that it creates this other, the Anunnaki and Anu, the leader of the Anunnaki, and it's all the step downs from Anunnaki. It creates this version of God. It creates this step down version of a creator that is underneath the most high creator, that automatically sets the tone of a piece of shit. So whether the whole program tries to play this storyline if they tie it in as a good guy or a bad guy, it's a win-win for the whole control grid as a whole, because you still come out of that storyline being a slave. That's the whole essence of how I'm seeing the Anunnaki Nibiru storyline. Whether they want to demonize Anu or the idea, the hologram, or whatever, the idea, the step down, that storyline as a whole, whether they want to demonize that story or make it like, yes, this is the creator, he's come to save everything, and good thing everything is now ready for the new. Like, we need to change literally the new. We need to change everything for the better and come together as one civilization, because we are connected to this alien race that is saying that we should be one world, one government, one religion, one history, one human storyline. That's the New Age agenda. Either way, it's win-win, because it creates another version of reality for the masses. And since the masses have been fed doggy treats their entire lives, they will have nothing else to grasp onto. And since the so-called conspiracy world and the underground information world has been sharing this information so much so on the astrological side and the science fiction side, tying in Atlantis and the Atlantean conspiracy, tying in all of these storylines, creates a synthetic version of reality. That synthetic version of reality, in order to be real, it has to include some truths. So I'm not saying that the whole storyline is any kind of like true or false. What I'm saying is that our existence is a hell of a lot more complicated than dinosaurs to monkeys to Scarlett Johansson. And it's a hell of a lot more complicated than Zecharia Sitchin and Sumer. The story of humanity is way deeper than that. It's older than that on one observation post. It's older, so there's more information there. Secondly, it doesn't at all speak to the spiritual essence of who and what we are. It doesn't at all approach the human individual and the human collective from an empowered perspective. So when they're selling Nibiru on a regular basis with fear and powerlessness and hopelessness and all these bright colors and all these all this stuff, end times, Armageddon, throwing I haven't even gone into the flat earth stuff yet. And that's like the main thing for me, understanding that. So when you understand that there's a sacred geometry to your existence, when you understand that you have a direct link to source that predates anything that is talking about this Anunnaki Nibiru stuff, when you understand that, then it really encompasses everything that falls underneath that storyline. All of it. So when you understand flat earth and you understand the creative intelligence and you understand the sun and the moon and the stars and how the whole astrological perspective is bullshit, this whole Nibiru, the one that we've known for the last 500 years, the whole Nibiru and Anunnaki storyline is heavily rooted in the NASA University System program based upon the globe model. All of the science of the rotation of the planets around the sun, all of the Nibiru is coming, all this stuff that could easily be locked into another holographic image, another holographic storyline that could be played. However, if the storyline is 90% true, and that last 10% is full of shit, that last 10% needs to be more focused on, because that little lip is what will set the tone for a potential control grid to take root. This is how I'm seeing the Annunaki Nibiru storyline being played within the conspiracy program, within the so-called, even RT. I don't know if you saw in the last little thing I was clicked on. The RT even referenced Nibiru. That's a mainstream news source. The New Age community has sucked this shit up, needing aliens, needing that Atlantean storyline, needing to connect with these extraterrestrials, needing to connect with some kind of storyline that's whatever. My main thing is it plays into the hand of the sphere model, the globe model. It plays into the hands of the alien agenda, and it plays into the hands of the slave human program, which is not universal. It's not universally accepted. It's also limited only to Sumer. So to have these storylines of Atlantis and all this other stuff out there existing, so-called existing, but to simultaneously have depths of storylines rooted in the actual civilizations of human civilization here that predates Sumer. It's just another version of Christianity and Catholicism coming out of like the Bible. Like that's basically what it is. So this whole story is like a new Bible, a new story. So just as you can understand the Jesus storyline, taking all of these stories from various cultures, being rooted in, for one example, the Horus story and Isis and Osiris, and all of these storylines being layers on top of layers. That's not a mistake. This has a purpose. It has a meaning in order to tell a particular story, in order to lock down a particular version of consciousness for that time being. So you can see right here the Nibiru, Anunnaki, Pleiadian. It plays into the New Age agenda. Off the bat. It doesn't go into everything. It's not all encompassing. It feels more like a biblical story, another biblical story to be sold to the masses, when there's so much more that we could be known. That's what's so good. This goes back to the percentage points I was saying before, the 90 and the 10%. So versions of that story, just like versions of the Bible, 90% of it has a truth, has an existence in truth, because it needs to in order to lock into your essence. But the 10% that is installed into that program on purpose is actually what has led to the manifestation of the destructive intelligence, which has created the foundation to these genocides and massacres and the control grid over the collective human storyline over time. More people have been killed in the name of God and the Bible than anything, period. So knowing, and you can, like I said, and that comes from the 10% versions, the interpretations of the storyline. So you can see, you can understand all of the storylines that have existed in the earth plane as being 100%. Just that's 100% storylines. 90% of those storylines tell the same story. 10% of those storylines are intertwined into all the storylines, but tell a version of the story, like the difference between 440 and 432 hertz in reference to our musical vibrations, our tones, how that throws off our sound, our vibrations. The same thing happens. That last 10% is throwing off the frequency, the overall frequency, in order to create this illusion of whatever it changes as the story gets told. So, in reference to this, it's to Nickelodeon. It's basically what it is. It's a movie reel. This is how I'm seeing it. Plays right into transhumanism. Plays right into the alien agenda. Plays right into the slave model. And it gives you, ultimately, if we were just to sit right now and be like, all right, well, this is accepted as because some people are already accepting this as their origin story. So those people are already going to be open to a new Bible, in a sense, or a new university system, or a new evolution theory, a new science. All of this can still exist on the globe model. All of this can still exist in that separation program. And all of that still does exist, heavily anchored in the slave program. And they can sell you another version of evolution, another version of the monkey mind, the monkey mentality, while simultaneously selling you a new God. A new God. Which is inherently separating you from the Most High, because now you have an idol. Not only does it separate you from the Most High, but it inherently separates you from your maximum potential. And since people have been separated so much for so many years from any kind of spiritual essence, it'll get eaten up. It'll get eaten up real quick. And the foundation to these storylines are the Atlantean stories. They can just activate that stuff. And like I said in previous videos, a lot of people don't believe anything until it's said by certain people. So just imagine if Discovery Channel, National Geographic, Vox, History Channel, Ancient Aliens, Veritasium, all these people, all these channels, basically all these channels started to tell the Anunnaki story as your history. That would install the new version of humanity, because people will believe it. This is how the storyline gets created, through your belief structure, manipulating your consciousness to believe a certain version of reality. So if they sell this, they can just science the shit out of it and then create a new version of evolution. So yeah, well, they can simultaneously demonize, create the bad guys and create the good guys. So now, and this is already what's happening with the ancient aliens being on the History Channel, already talking about this stuff and skating around the outskirts of it, referencing Zecharia Sitchin on a regular basis, referencing and having actually Eric Von Daniken on there with the chariots of the gods and the people, the Annunaki, the Sumerian. Like, he's already creating this tone. So, not to mention, I forgot to even mention that Ancient Aliens already pretty much accepts the Anunnaki Nibiru storyline as part of this reality. So if it's accepted by that mainstream version of storyline, because this is what it's all about. It's about creating bad guys so you can create good guys. And when you have the superheroes, the DC and the Marvel storylines fighting the bad guys of DC and Marvel fighting the bad guys of Marvel, and then they have to intertwine and then mix and then fight each other or some shit like that, whatever it is. Meanwhile, the movie, that's the movie. And the masses are just helpless and hopeless watching the movie play as slaves. That's my biggest thing, my biggest issue with seeing this storyline and talking about this. It's got huge gaps in it. It's way too locked in to the slave model of next agenda stuff. And it's missing a lot of pieces, and it inherently creates this slave system. I don't give a shit how old, what stuff here and there. There are too many gaps in the storyline, too many things left out, and it's too limited to one version, one story. It doesn't encompass, it's not encompassing the Mayans, the Aztec, the Olmecs, the Inca, all over the world. It's specifically only about Sumer. Only about Sumer and the Sumerians, the Sumerian texts. That ain't nothing but a new Bible. So they can just turn Zecharia Sitchin stuff and Eric Von Daniken stuff into the new Bible. And that's how I'm really seeing what this is going on. And when they do that, they create this new version of evolution. This new version. They can create another an opening for a new what's the word? A new astrology and a new astronomy based upon these new concepts, and why everything was secret and all this other stuff. And they can say, oh, okay, well, you know, this is what happened to Atlantis. You had the bad guys and the good guys back then, and today it's the same thing. You got the bad guys and the good guys, and we're the good guys. And what's stopping them from telling you that they're the good guys when they're actually the bad guys? But you won't see it for another 50, 100 years or whatever. People are too damn sharp right now and are privy to too much information, which is why it's taking so long, or seemingly taking so long, for any of these so-called conspiracy stories or these manipulated agendas to take root. Is because we've been manipulated by illusions for centuries. Illusions, fear, self-destruction, separation has been the actual foundation to the enslavement of the human storyline. So if the so-called new version of our reality, new version of understanding our roots, is still based upon slavery and separation, why the hell would you accept that as your reality? Why won't you understand your direct connection to source? Because there's going to be people who accept these new stories because that's what they're based upon. That's what they're going to do. That's what people need in order to get past that. But I'm speaking to the individuals who've been on the lip of this storyline, because this is how I feel about it. This is just, if Anu or whoever was to come down and start talking shit, I'd be talking to him just like I'm talking right now. Who the fuck do you think you are? Who are you? What's going on with this whole thing? I don't give a fuck what you say. This is not a slave program. You are not God. The whole idea of God, the way you reference it, is a limitation and bullshit. And if you're selling some new version of reality, don't come around here selling that shit. But see, that not everybody is going to be thinking like that, because we've been soaked for so long. We've been distracted and separated from any kind of information. And like I said, if this were to be activated on the mainstream circuit, like I said, anything people believe, anything that comes on History Channel, Discovery Channel, National Geographic, the mainstream media, your politicians, the university system, your professors, all those assholes, if they get together and say it, that makes it real for a large majority of people. Now, a lot of people are losing that connection. I was going to say connection, but it's actually a lack of connection, and reconnecting with who and what they really are individually, which is inherently creating the connection of the collective space. See, to create these science fiction storylines is to create another space between you and the Most High, you and your maximum potential. There is no difference between trying to connect to immortality through transhumanism and trying to connect to a new version of God through a new Bible, pretty much, a new storyline, a new theory of evolution, just because it's more catchy. I'm not buying it. I am not buying it. This is some heavily, it's leaking. It's like it's dense overall. I'm just throwing out words that makes it like builds up in my throat, in my body when I'm thinking about this whole storyline. And this is not new for me. Like, I actually started coming into reading about Zecharia Sitchin stuff 4 or 5 years ago. About 5 years ago. And it resonated at a point, and then it kind of like Bashar and all those other things, it just kind of hit this wall and it ran out. And I was just like, man, there's something more to this. It's not this. And now seeing that there's more to it involving the manipulation program, now understanding how the whole system is set up to make people separate themselves and lock into these storylines and this slave mentality, it makes sense to be a part of this whole next agenda. Because that's my main point, is that this Nibiru, Annunaki. The main things are, like I said, in reference to the bloodline stuff and all that, it has to bring in some kind of truth. Like, there has to be some kind of truth there. So that, like I'm saying, it's not all, it fits into the storyline some kind of way. But it's not about what's being said, it's how it's being said. It's how this stuff is being told to the masses. Because they can tell you from a place of slave mentality, or they can tell you the story from your maximum potential, or at least opening up that world of the maximum potential to an empowered space. The idea of fear, distraction, separation, limitation, and connecting into new agendas automatically makes it suspect, automatically locks it into the separation program, and doesn't tap at all into your maximum potential or your ancestral roots. It locks away a large majority of who and what you are and glorifies another version of it. I got a problem with that. And as this story keeps playing out, we'll see more of what's going on as far as how this is related, because like I was saying in previous videos, they're going to tell you that you need this new religion and that you're going to be a part of this new world whatever. And if this new religion is it's got to be believable. And people are already in the mainstream circuit through Ancient Aliens, George Norrie and all that stuff. They're already open to, like, the pieces on the board. This is how I'm looking at it right now. The pieces on the board. Atlantis, big piece on the board. Big piece on the board. You don't have any kind of anythings from like set in stone anywhere. It's still like a mystery. Just like slave ships. Where are the slave ships? You can hear the story of slaves and slavery. But where are the slave ships? Why are those glorified stories of why are those stories so glorified? Same thing with Atlantis. The alien agenda, obvious. The UFO, Area 51 connection. It's a bait. This is all a big bait. Bait and hook trap. And as long as people are piecing together this story in reference to it being true for themselves, that actually is beneficial to the next control grid, because it's already locked into these storylines. Now, like I said, in reference to Sumer and Sumer's connection to Kemet and the storylines and the people there is some kind of overlap of story that goes on there. But when it's only told from one perspective, and it's told to you by people like Zecharia Sitchin and Eric Von Daniken and Ancient Aliens and people that go on George Norrie and all these so-called conspiracy sites as, this is it, I got a problem with that. And underneath all of this shit, because a big part of these theories, the Anunnaki Nibiru theory, is that one I can't think of what it's called right now, but the clay pictograph basically showing the planets as so-called planets, as spherical bodies, which sets the essence up for the spherical body of Nibiru. So the fact that that all exists, me being understanding of the Earth plane and the bullshit of NASA, it already throws up some red flags. So I start there, and then I walk backwards through it, seeing what's going on as it presents itself. And it becomes obvious over time because my intuition has been feeling this way for the last 5 years. It only has manifested into a general understanding of how it fits into the control grid. And that's why I'm sharing this video right now. Because it's been lingering from some time. And I wanted to know more about it. And you can see how many videos, how much information, and how many people are believing this stuff already. It's very easy, and that's another thing, and another part of it. It was very easy, it really locked into me back in that time frame when I was reading, was it 12th Planet? I think that was named that Zecharia Sitchin's book. It locked in. I was like, oh man, this is it. This is some good stuff. And then over time, there was more. There's more to it. There's more to this story. And that stuff just faded. And when I looked at even this video right here, the whole video, the 1436 Zecharia Sitchin UFO, when I was watching that video, it's actually long, it's like an hour or something like that, the full video. It makes sense up to a point. And that's the main point. Anything that makes sense up to a point. Like the Bible. Christianity, even NASA makes sense up to a point. And then you get to that point, and then it's just like, fuck. There's more points to it. And the more points that you connect, the more dots that you connect to the storylines that exist outside of the limited constructs of reality, the easier it'll be to see how some of these points and storylines exist to further the agenda of the slave program and the separation program. So that's where the Annunaki Nibiru story sits with me. So thank you for joining me, and until next time, from all our relations, peace, love, and harmony.